I'm Katrina, and this is So in Tare. And today we are going to talk about pond maintenance. So I dug a pond several years ago now. I dug a pond. It's 4 feet deep on most of it, and then on this side it has a shelf that is about that, maybe a foot and a half deep, and that's where I put all the plants in containers along the edge, and of course until the raccoons push them in. So like the horsetail that's in there used to be over here. But there are three things. There are three things I do for pond maintenance. One is I make sure that there's enough cover. So I have this shade cloth up there, and then I also have the plants that are inside. Now it's getting colder, so those are going to freeze and kind of go away a little bit, but they will come back because some of them will survive because I have that cover. So that's one, is make sure that the pond is shaded enough. Number two is fish. Okay. You're gonna have to feed your fish if you're starting a new pond for a little bit before there's enough to feed them in there. But I learned this because of mosquito larvae. So before I built my pond, it was, I had pond plants. When I was digging it and all that, I already had the plants, but I was keeping them in Rubbermaid tubs. And so I ended up getting mosquito larvae in the Rubbermaid tubs. I was like, oh, uh-oh. So I went to the fish store, went to the PetSmart, and I got minnows. And these are ruby red minnows. So I have ruby red minnows in there, and I also have some comet goldfish. These are both fish that eat mosquito larvae, and they also eat, other things that are in there. They snack on some of the algae and stuff like that. So I'm going to start these guys floating. So I have 20 of the minnows and 5 of the goldfish. Give you another view of this, and I'll start floating them. Now, what is floating? Alright, so floating, I just put that in there, and it's going to float for at least 15 minutes before I open the bag and let the fish out. What floating does is it makes sure that the temperature of the water has equalized throughout. So the pond is colder than the water than they were in the fish tank in the store, so this will give them enough time for that water temperature to equalize, so it's not a shock to their system when they go into the pond. So that is, we're gonna do that for 15 minutes and do that. So the third thing, so I had those two things going. Well, really I had one. I had the fish, but you have the shade and the fish, and when you have those two things going, something else can happen. It's called eutrophication. And this often happens when you don't have enough shade and you get an excess of algae, and then you get too many nutrients in the system, and it takes the oxygen out of the water. So again, that term is called eutrophication. It's E-U-T, eutrophication. And so that's too many nutrients are in the water. It takes the oxygen out of the water, and basically all your fish die, or anything dependent on oxygen dies. So when you're looking for having fish in your pond, you want to make sure, because it's not mine is not aerated, so it has to be ones that can air gulp. And so minnows and goldfish are two species that can do that, and also that they can take the temperatures where I am. So anyway, I came back from a work trip to, when I left, there was a whole bunch of baby fish. I had baby minnows, and when I came back, I had no fish. They had all died, all sunk to the bottom, and the pond stunk. And I looked in, and there was algae going throughout the water column. So not just the top algae, surface algae is kind of a different story, but this was throughout the water column. And that's when I started researching, and I found out about this. Now, do you have to buy this in package? No. This is barley straw. That's all it is barley straw. And they tell you how much to use per you know, per little bale. You can get this at PetSmart. You know, any pet store, any pond store is going to have this. If you want to go get a big bale of hay, let's say you have a big pond and you need, you know, a lot of it, just get a bale of barley straw. That's exactly what this is. So there's that. And why am I putting straw in the pond? That's silly, right? Here's why. Barley has an enzyme, and if I look it up and put it on the screen, I don't remember what it is, but I'll look it up and I'll put it on the screen so you guys know what it is. But it has an enzyme. When it breaks down and starts to rot, the enzyme is released, and I believe it's the enzyme. As barley straw gets broken down by beneficial bacteria, it releases humic acid. Humic acid plus oxygen plus sunlight equals a superoxide radical, which then becomes hydrogen peroxide, and that is where the breakdown of the algae happens at a safe level for your fish. And that basically eats away at algae in the water column. So that is why I put these in. And these you're supposed to put closest to a flow, you know, where the water is flowing. Mine doesn't have that. It you know, pretty stagnant, except for, you guys might have seen this. You guys see this green thing here? That's a hose. It's buried in a conduit underneath the pathway, so I can add water to this easily if I need to. Right now it's full of rain. But what I'm going to do is put one over here, and then one, if you look at where the shade cloth is, this actually holds water and drips down when it rains. So I'm going to put one in the middle there and then one over here, and that should be good. I have no idea how many gallons this pond is. It's irregularly shaped and dug by hand, so I don't know. I mean, I could do a rough math if I wanted to. I just throw both of these in there and if the cult's good. I haven't done this in like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, that's enough. And so, especially starting out, if you're starting out, I wouldn't wait for it to get, you know, algae laden. I would just throw a couple of these in there so that you have those enzymes working for you already. Another way to do that is to, like, if you have, like, I have a neighbor who has a little pond, and she gave me some of her plants. That will also bring in, you know, some enzymes and bacteria and stuff like that. It could also bring in bad stuff, so be careful where you're getting that from. But there you go. It is getting dark. I have no idea what the quality of this video is, so I'm gonna do this. So I just put those in there. I am going to weigh them down a little bit later and make sure it's soaked up. Now those shouldn't fall to the, they should float a little bit. They shouldn't fall to the bottom, but they will start to rot in a little bit. It does take a while, and then that will just be a maintenance. I'm not dealing with any particular algae right now. I am adding fish because I did see mosquito larvae. And I have had raccoons in the yard, and in the pond, very obviously in the pond. So I'm wondering if my fish population got, you know, what were raccoon snacks. So if there's not many fish in there, or if maybe they ate all the fish, I don't know. But it's a pretty cheap fix to just go to the pet store and get some minnows and, you know, goldfish, and go from there. I used to have a fish in there. It was about that big, an orange one, and it would let me pet it. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not when it comes to the surface. But anyway, so that is what I do to maintain my pond. It's not that difficult, but getting started, it does have some kind of benchmarks that you have to go through. And if I knew about the barley straw in advance, I would have definitely started with that. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can still see the video. It's really dark. And I encourage you to have a pond on your property, whether it's small or large. There's so much wildlife that comes in, not just raccoons. possums too. I have a mama possum that comes visits, but I get all sorts of dragonflies and water bugs and just all sorts of birds that come in, and it's really nice. It's a really good thing. And then it also does have a humidity factor, so it increases the humidity immediately around it. And I believe it's probably enough that it also has a little bit of a warming factor for the plants, for the trees around it. I don't know how much, but it has to have some. It's a big body of water, and so it has to have some. And the effect of that will be greater the greater the pond size. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I encourage you to have a pond, have a water feature, have something in your yard that's water, and share this with someone who likes ponds and maybe has an algae problem, maybe has a mosquito problem. These are two solutions that are super easy and relatively inexpensive. And please like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.